Okay, so as we discussed earlier, this portion of the session is now being recorded, and we are going to have a professional discussion based on policies and quality within the organisation, and things that are centred around that. We'll then look at some processes as well. The first one that we'll look at is some of your organisation's internal policies. So some policies that your company has to do in line with the needs of the needs of the business.
Yeah. So we use GDPR and health and safety, but our own policies that follow underneath that are the cloth policy, which is basically where we colour code each cloths to each room, so there's no cross-contamination. We also use different mop heads for different households. So some households have pets, some don't. So we have different mop heads for different houses. And written on our notes for the different clients, we will have a little box that says, does this house have pets? And it says yes or no. So the cleaners will then know which mop head to use for that house. We also have a key policy, which the keys have to be returned at the end of the day. This is just for safety reasons, so everyone knows where the keys are.
Okay, so your key policy, Leah, let's expand a little bit on that. So that was something that you identified as a need for the business.
Yes.
So if you just explain what the process was before that, or what you were doing before the key policy, and how that came about.
So the process was you could take the keys back whenever you wanted, and this would mean that keys were going missing, or people were keeping keys for too long, so that when the next clean came, if it was a fortnightly or weekly, then the key wouldn't be there. So I came up with the idea of having a key policy where each key has to be brought at the end of the day, and when you take the key out, you have to sign it out, and then when you return it, you sign it back in again, so we know at all times who's taken that key out the last time it was seen.
Okay, excellent. So it's everything's accounted. So it's an accountability.
Yes.
People take accountability and responsibility for that, and you're able to track it a lot better.
Yes.
So what was involved in implementing that process, Leah? Did you have to get authorization from management to go ahead with that?
I had a bit of a meeting one-to-one to share my idea, but from that they agreed, and we set out a plan on making the key in and out system and training the employees on how to work that.
Excellent. So, okay, so was there like a bedding in period where you kind of tested it? You thought, well, we're going to test doing this for a couple of weeks, and then if it goes well, we'll review it, and then we'll implement it long term.
Not really. It kind of just worked from the start, because as soon as we put it in, we realised that keys weren't going missing, and it was working perfectly for everyone. Everyone knew where they were at all times.
Through communication and training and
communication.
Okay, and knowledge of the business. Okay, and that's worked well since.
Yes, it's worked well.
From a financial perspective, Leah, as well, was there anything that did you have to manage a budget for that at all?
No.
Did you have to buy the key safe?
Yes, we had to buy the key safe and the block which the keys are hung up on. We had to buy them as well, and then the books to obviously log them in and out.
Okay, so that was part of the project. This was a project effectively that you had to implement, that you took it upon yourself to implement by identifying it. You didn't need to. It sounds like you didn't need to let any customers or stakeholders know.
No, not really.
Because it was need to know basis.
Yeah.
How did you communicate to the staff that this was going to happen?
We basically set out a meeting between us and the staff, and then slowly we just train them individually how to use the new system. It was quite easy to pick up on, so it didn't require much training.
Okay, excellent. And because it was there any online training or any IT packages that had to be involved in doing this? Not really, just part of the communication to staff and information exchanged between yourself and line managers.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any bits of kind of policy and regulation or legislation that you had to follow for this that you had to take into account?
No, not really, but because it was our own policy, then it was more than what we wanted to do by signing in at the end of the day and out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, no worries. So in terms of, I'm just thinking in terms of like a PESEL document, it wasn't really affected by any kind of political based decisions, or there wasn't a kind of too many external factors involved, other than you deciding that you wanted to improve that process and the smooth running of the business.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so that's the first one. So can you think of any key business policies in your sector, Leo? So you've already mentioned a few there that you have to follow, that are regulation that you have to then base your policy on.
They're the main ones that apply to my role, which is the key safe one, the cloth and health and safety.
Yeah, and GDPR and data protection as well.
Yeah.
So these are kind of key policies for your sector from a health and safety perspective, from an operational perspective, and through thinking of things, we basically consider, how does it affect the business from a corporate perspective, the operations, the smooth running of the business. So it definitely helped with that.
Yeah.
From an HR perspective, it wouldn't have really involved anyone from HR. I would think. And then from a financial perspective, you obviously gave yourself a budget to buy the key safe and where you were going to keep the keys, and that was managed accordingly. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in project proposal as well. And what was the other one? I can't remember now. But that's basically you basically explained a process within your job role.
Yeah.
So that's a process that you use, or that you've implemented, and that the rest of the staff use, and you've described that well.
Yeah.
In terms of improvements to processes, would you say that you're quite vigilant with kind of monitoring and reviewing your own business processes, Leah?
Yes, I do. I remain vigilant with the policies and to keep up to date with the new laws in between.
Okay, so it's important we remain up to date with kind of key bits of regulation, laws, legislation, because if something changes, for example, if suddenly the government made an update to the Health and Safety at Work Act,
then I have to know about that and make a change.
Precisely. So you'd have to be vigilant and kind of stay up to date with this kind of stuff. You then look at your own policy. Is it fit for purpose? Does it comply? Is it compliant with this regulation? If it is, first and foremost, you can then tailor it and check whether it meets the needs of the business. But effectively, there's some bits of regulation that come in that don't fit the needs of the business, and you have to change them because it's the law. You're going to get fined. You're going to get it's corporate responsibility to make sure you comply with these things. So it's not always as simple as just checking and hoping that it's okay. Okay. Explain how you administer billing and processing orders in your organisation, Leah. So if you talk a little bit about how the process of how once you provide a service, how people are able to pay.
Yeah, so most of our clients pay via a standing order, as we have regular clients. So it's just easy for them, so they don't forget, or so they don't miss, like wrongly pay us a different amount or something. One-off clients either use bank transfer or cash. It's completely up to them. We give them the option. And we noticed that more senior clients like to use cash, as they don't have to go on any online IT systems. It's just straightforward.
Excellent. So that's really good that you've made that possible for them to do that. So in terms of a billing, like an invoicing system, do you then send an invoice to most people?
Yes.
you do once it's been done, and that gets checked against the amount that's then been paid in.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Is there a separate like finance department that does that, Leah, or are you the finance department?
But like whoever is there does it.
Pretty much. Okay, excellent. Right, we're just going to move forward, Leah, and we're also going to look at some processes as well.
Yeah.
Because we've actually mentioned a couple of processes involved with those discussions we had about policy. So we've already mentioned explaining organisational processes that you might follow. So why do you think it's important to consistently follow processes?
So that everything runs smoothly and nothing can be. It just reduces the risk of anything going wrong within the business.
Yeah, that's it. So it looks after the smooth running and operations of the business.
Yeah.
So everybody's informed. There's clear and concise communication. Everybody understands exactly what they need to do. Everyone understands why they need to do it.
Yeah.
As well, importantly. So from a corporate perspective, it means that operations run smoothly. From an HR perspective, it means that you're not going to get in trouble, and that you're compliant with laws and regulations. Also from a legal perspective, and that incorporates financial as well. So it means that you're not going to be fined and bad things like that.
Yeah.
And it also means from a health and safety perspective that people are safe.
Yeah.
So for things like duty of care, it's important that everybody understands the COSH, like regulations that are in place, for example, and you probably get them to sign a form off once you've gone through any training with them to say that they understand that and they know what to follow. And then you'll have follow-up training with them on that to make sure to enforce and check up on them as well.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got describe a time where you've suggested a small improvement to the organisation's processes. The key safe idea encapsulates that perfectly, which we've explained. How did you support the successful implementation of that? We've been through that as well. Explain why it's important to promote adherence to processes. So this is pretty similar to the last question that we asked. So why do you think it's important that everybody understands exactly what they have to do?
Just so you keeping track on laws, keeping track on policies within the business, and like the organisation runs smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely that from an internal perspective, but for your customers.
They also that everything's going perfectly.
Exactly. That's also going to be really, really important for your customers, that people understand what processes you've got in place and that's explained to them. And that mixes in with some of the work that we did on kind of business fundamentals and kind of business image and reputation.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing as well. And then we've got describe why you should promote change to other employees. So if there's a change within the business, why should there be communication, education as to why it's important we do this? These are the reasons why.
This so they can keep up to date with what's happening in the business, and so they're not like confused as to why something has gone a different way than what it used to be, or basically just so they're keeping up to date with it. Yeah,
that's it. And there's a couple of models that you can follow for kind of management change theories. One of them is called Kotter's 8-step process. That we can look at, and the other one's called Lewin's change model, and it's basically a list of steps that you should take whenever there's a change within the business or an update in policy. It suggests that there's steps that you can take to enforce that and make sure that it's carried out and executed sufficiently. It involves communication. It involves getting the right people involved to promote it. It involves reinforcement, reviewing why it's important and going back to why people should be doing this, looking at processes and how it's effective, elements of PESL as well, of why this, what can potentially, external factors that can affect the business, internal factors that can affect the business, So they're quite interesting, but because they're quite flexible as well. And they're quite agile, and that you can apply them to most situations.
Yeah.
Okay. We've then got, are you able to identify inefficiencies or ineffectiveness in a process to support successful implementation? Well, the Key Safe policy came about as a result of that. So there was confusion. It wasn't safe. It wasn't a safe or a smooth enough process at the time. So you identified that there was an inefficiency within the business there. You identified it, put a plan into place, planned, executed it, reviewed it, and it's been the same ever since because it works really well. Yeah. Okay, excellent. That is that's everything we need for that, Leah. So I'm just going to pause the recording there.